Hi, my name's Robin Wood and I'm the current maintainer of DVWA, Damn Vulnerable Web App. Up until this point, I've always avoided making videos for installing my tools and applications, mostly because you can guarantee 5 minutes after making the video something will change, OS or application change, and parts of the video will become invalid. But recently, quite a lot of people have been asking for a video for DVWA, so I've finally given in, and this is it. The video is going to walk through getting DVWA working in Kali that's running in VirtualBox. Similar techniques should work in similar operating systems, but for now I'm going to go through the most basic option, which is Kali, full install of it, and running in VirtualBox, so you don't have to do it on bare hardware. Version I'm installing it on. We go to the Kali site, virtual machines, and it's this 64-bit VirtualBox. So what I'm saying will probably also work in VMware and other versions, but I said this is the one that I'm using. So I've downloaded this and got it installed. I haven't done any other updates to the system yet. This is just a bare install. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the DVWA GitHub repo. Now, this is the only version that I support. There are various versions out there. People have made Docker containers and all sorts of other packages come with different OSs. I know this version and I know how it installs, how it works, therefore this is the version I support. If you want to install from a package on some other OS, go for it, but you won't be getting much support because package maintainers can make changes and it's really hard to look after and debug problems that other people have created. So if you want support, this is the one to use. So what we'll do, we'll grab the code from here and let's clone the repo. Now we've got that cloned, we need to move it into the Apache document root. So this version of Kali comes with Apache installed, so we don't have to worry about installing it. All we need to do is move DVWA into the document root. We need sudo on this because var www.html is a protected directory. You can't access it with the standard Kali user. Default password for this is Kali. There we go. So if we now change it to directory, document root, we'll see we've got a DVWA directory inside it. Let's have a quick look over here. If we go localhost, what we should see is nothing's working. We can't connect. Oh, that's because the Apache web server doesn't run by default. So sudo service Apache 2 start, and that will start the Apache web server. Come back over here, try again. Come on, start up. It's gone. For some reason it's defaulted to HTTPS. Let's strip that back down to HTTP, and there we go. So we've now got our Apache 2 default web page. This is what you'd expect when you look in the root directory. We've put DVWA in its own directory. Notice it's capitalized. Apache is case sensitive. So let's have a look there, /DVWA, and we get an error. Config file not found. Copy the config inc php dist to config inc php. So notice we're stripping off the dist. Reason this is done is we distribute a sample config file in the dist file name, and you need to copy it to your standard file .php and set your own, make your own changes to it. That prevents people accidentally trying to commit their changes with their database passwords and other things in it into the Git repo. If you're not sure how to do copying and stuff like that, if we go into here and we scroll down, and there's the instructions for it. So what we're going to do, as it says, we're going to copy config the dist file with a PHP extension. You could move it as well if you wanted to, but copying is better, so you've got a backup of the file. So let's see DVWA. So we're going to the config file, we can see our dist version of the file. And we copy it to there. Now what we can do is have a quick check of that file. And if we make this a bit bigger, we can see it comes with standard defaults. Main things you need to worry about during a basic install is the database credentials. Database server will be localhost, database name DVWA, user again DVWA, and a fairly weak password. Let's leave that there for a minute. We come back over to DVWA and we refresh this. We'll start to get errors. Let's go back and let's try setup. And this is where most people end up. We get to this, don't worry about these red bits for a minute. Let's try to create the database. Again, we're getting errors. Reason for this is the database server isn't running yet. So come out to here, we'll quit this. And let's get the database server running. That should have been done with a sudo, but the OS prompted us anyway. So we now start the database server. Let's go back. If we look at the setup and work through the setup, we can ignore a little bit of this for now. We'll come back to Linux packages in a minute. What this is telling us is do the config change, which we've done. These are the defaults database credentials. So now we need to create the database and create the user for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a new shell. I'm going to do this in a very deliberate way. So become root and back over here. I'm going to bring up my database credentials. Let's start MySQL. Now, even though it's called MariaDB, historically this was forked from MySQL. If you're interested in that, go do your research. But we're now in the MariaDB client console, and we're not connected to a database, we're just in as root. Now notice we are going in as root and there's no password by default. Go over here, we've got all the instructions we need. And we're just going to do some copy pasting. Create the database. Something to look out for when doing all these commands. Check for errors. So query, okay, one row affected, it worked. If we'd have made a typo in here, put some stuff in, you're not getting an error. You're not getting a good response. So always check that you get good messages back. So there we go again, we've got an error. If we'd maybe spelt create wrong. Oh, let's get rid of that. There we go. Again, we've got create wrong, we've got errors. So always look. When it works, it tells you it's worked, it says okay. When it fails, it gives you an error. If you get an error, don't just press on. Look through the error, work out what it is, work out what it's trying to tell you. The vast majority of issues, tickets I get raised are people who have pushed through things like this. There's been errors and they've just carried on regardless. So if you get an error, stop, look at it, work out what you've done wrong. It's quite often a typo. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to create our user. Now just before I hit enter on this, we'll notice create user, the username DVWA, and the password is there, p@sword. Come back over here and we're going to check they match these credentials in here, DVWA and the password. This password and this username have to match what you've put in here. Similarly, the database name is the one we've just created up here with the create database. If these don't match, it will fail. You will get errors. So okay, make sure all this works. So we're creating a user DVWA at localhost identified by, let's make that a bit bigger. It's not going to expand, but identified by password. And again, query OK, it worked. Next line. This is giving the DVWA user permission to do whatever it wants to on the DVWA database. OK. And the last thing we need to do is flush privileges. What this does is it tells the database server to reload its authentication database and various other bits of the privilege model. If you don't do this last step, your new user that you've created won't have access to the system because the system doesn't know about it. It's not reloaded its database yet. So before I close this up, I'm going to create yet another shell, and we're going to test our user. So to do this, MySQL -u specifies the user we're going to use, and we're going to use DVWA, and we're going to say -p, and that tells it we're going to provide a password. If we don't put anything on the command line, it will ask us for it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to copy that. I'm going to make sure I don't get that rogue quote at the end. Come on, we can catch this. So we're going to copy that. We're going to come over here and paste it. I think I typed it wrong. Let's try something a little different, because copying out of Vim is never easy. That's better. Copy selection, paste selection. What we're doing now, I'm just going to put it on the command line. If you want to pass on the command line -p, then no space, very important, no space there, and the password, so we can do that. And there we go, we're in. We can use DVWA, and that lets us change into the DVWA database. So we've proved it works. I'll just show you that. -p, and go over here, paste selection, and there we go. You can do that without putting it on the command line. If when you raise a ticket for an issue, I think the problem is with the database username and password, what I will ask for is a screenshot showing this with the password on the command line, so make sure there's no space. If you've got funky passwords with certain special characters in, you may need to start escaping them or use quotes, but if you're using the default one, just as it is. And I will also want a screenshot of this to show that the password that you're giving it and the username match what's in here. Again, common mistake is somebody will change the password in here, and then when they create the user, they'll give it a different password, or they'll decide the database user should be Fred, and they'll create a user over here called Wilma, and they'll try and log in down here with Bam Bam. It's a standard thing, so as long as you make sure all these tie up to what you create over here, and then check you can log into it on the command line, everything should be working. So now if we come back up to here and go back to the setup page, we get our working setup page. For now, don't worry about the reds. We're just going to see what happens when we're going to create the database. Run that. And there we go. Database created, users created, guestbook was created, and we get a redirect to the login page. Default credentials, admin and password, and there we go, in we go, we're in. And that is it. You have now got the most basic version of DVWA done, set up, installed and working. If you want to stop there, that's fine. The vast majority of the features will be working for you, and you can get in and do some testing. Let's just check it. We're starting security level impossible. Let's drop our level down to low. SQL injection. That works. Throw a single quote in there and we should start getting errors. Things break. So I'll leave that up to you to then work out what you can do with that. But that's deliberate there. That is a deliberate error. If you want to go a step further with this, and you look at the setup page and you say, oh, I don't like these red bits. Red bits worry me. We can work through. We can clear those up. Oh, right. So the first one in the PHP function, allow URL include is disabled. So let's enable that. To do that, we become root. We look in the etc PHP directory. In here, we're going to 8.1. Again, this is where things will change. New version of PHP comes out, you'll get 8.2, change into the 8.2 directory. Yeah, this is where common sense starts to come in. You've got to use the version that's appropriate for the current day. So we're running Apache 2. And we need to edit the php.ini file. And what we're looking for is allow URL include. We've got allow URL fopen, which is there. That's enabled. Yes, it is. Allow URL include is not, so let's turn that on. If you're not a Vim user, I'm sure the box probably has got nano. It has. I'm not a nano user, so I like Vim. Strongly suggest if you want to get into any kind of Linux admin work, you learn Vim. It will make your life a lot easier in the long run. So we've done that. Thing we need to do now, Apache CTL restart. I'll restart Apache to activate the changes you've just made. You can ignore this warning here about server name directive. If you want to fix that, again, I'll let you research Apache. It's a fairly easy fix. Come back over here, reload. That's enabled. Next one, PHP module GD. Again, this is another thing you get tickets raised for. This is only required if you want to play with, I think it's either one or maybe two of the capture labs. So for the vast majority of people, this is completely irrelevant. You can completely ignore it. If you want to fix that, get rid of the red. Way to do that: apt install PHP GD. Now this will fail. If you do this by default out of the box on a fresh install of Kali, it will fail. What you need to do first is apt update. What that does is it goes off to the Kali servers and it pulls down a list of all the packages. So we'll give that a minute. And at the end of it, your output will slightly differ to mine, depending on what's been updated. But now we should be able to do our apt install phpgd. There we go. Do we want to do it? Yep, we do. That will come down. phpgd is now installed. Restart Apache. I think it's probably restarts Apache for you automatically, but I like to do it anyway by hand. GD is installed. Recapture key, that is beyond this video. You need to go off to Google, register for recapture keys and add them. Fairly simple process. It is covered in the README file if you want to do that. Next bit, writable folder. this directory is not writable. Two ways to fix this: the correct way or the lazy way. The correct way is to use proper Linux permissions. The web server is running as the www data user. If we look at the directory uploads, you'll see that's currently owned by the Kali user. So in a good world, what you would do is you can chown, which is change ownership to www data to this to this directory. And now if we do an ls, the directory is now owned by the www data user, and so it's got write access to it. Refresh that and it's writable. The other slightly lazy way of doing it, chmod 777 on the directory. That works. It's just not quite as smooth an option, but it does work. Next one, writable file, and we're going to do exactly the same with that. This is the PHP IDS log. So we're going to chown that file. Come back, there we go. We've now got another folder that's writable. This one here, our config folder, is where we put the config file. And the reason this wants to be writable, we have a look in that folder. We've got a config and a config dist. When we run the setup, as part of the setup process, it will create a backup of the config file. This is a deliberate vulnerability in the app, and yeah, it lets you find backup files that shouldn't be there but are. So again, reload. Okay, and there we go. So we've fixed all of these. Capture key I will leave to you to sort out if you really want it, if you want to play with captures. And we've fixed all the rest of it. Setup's done. Everything's working. Let's have a quick look at a reflected XSS. What's your name? Robin. Oops. And I've got to find the quote key on this keyboard because it's not set up for the UK. And we get some injection there. Again, I'll leave working that one out as an option for you. So that's it. I hope you found this useful, and it gives you a proper working DVWA install. If you've had any problems with it, let me know, but please, when you're setting things up, run your commands, read for error messages. If you see an error, do some research first. Don't just paste the error, this doesn't work, fix it for me. Do your own research, read up on it, and treat it as a learning process. If you can learn everything there is about how to get this installed, when you actually come to test web apps, your understanding of the underlying part of the web app will be much better, and your testing will be better. Okay, so hope you enjoyed it, and bye bye.